Gormaga, thank you very much, Cahirlock, and welcome to Minister Foley. And I know it was a great day yesterday, of course, and congratulations on, again, taking up this role and, of course, delivering for so many families and children all across Ireland. Again, I also want to wish Minister Hildegard Naughton, Minister of State, who will be coming in, I suppose, under the special education. And if I might take this moment just to acknowledge, I suppose, the efforts of Minister Josepha Madigan as well in this department under special education and inclusion. And I suppose that it's crucial that we sort of see that there's been higher than ever any budget's been allocated into education and into inclusion and into schools where we need supports with additional educational needs, and that we're seeing over 2.6 million coming into that area, as well as, from what I understand, an additional 113 million in 2024. Minister, I spoke with a few principals today just in advance of us meeting, and I know that there's so many good things. It's good to start with the really positive because there are so many positives. I know from principals that they have never seen as much input coming into their classes. They've never seen as much transformation in terms of nearly 21,000 special needs assistants, for example, the increase in the special educational teachers that we've seen across the board, the impact of the hot school meals and the way that we do it in Ireland, which means every child in a school and in a classroom has access to those meals. I've heard stories about how children, even today, ate meat for the very first time that had never eaten meat before. Children are eating vegetables. Children are getting great nutrition and great meals, and that is so important when it comes to attention spans and so on. So just that is a real success story. And I think, Minister, with the Department of Education and the communications area in the Department of Education, that we need to be focusing in on this and the impact of the Hot School Meals programme and how this needs to be continued and expanded because it has such an impact for families from all backgrounds and none. Just in relation to the school books, again, that this has had a major impact, and of course at junior school, and Minister, I know your commitment to expanding this even further, of course, up to junior cert. And just to highlight again, of course, the increase to 130 in the special schools. If I might, just in terms of my questions, I know I'm just conscious of time as well. Obviously, I know this isn't directly your area, Minister, but you may be able to give just some information on this, or even if it's possible to come back again. I know it's more so Minister Naughton, but just under the appeals process for SET allocation. Obviously, there were changes this year for many, many different reasons. We've more and more children and the population moving, of course, towards secondary schools. But just one of the issues here was a lack of data. One of my key things is around having an online share care record for every person in Ireland. So all of their medical data and information evaluations is always kept together. But obviously there's a huge issue here because there was lack of data coming from the HSC in relation to Children's Disability Network teams. The assessment is done in 2nd, 4th and 6th class. I want to ask, is there any comment about why this could not be done as well in junior infants? Between junior infants and 2nd class, we have 4 years. 4 years where schools and towns, for example, like where I am in Ballinasloe, we have a huge input. We have 136 new homes coming into our town, local authority. We also have over 64 modular units coming in. Those children will be young families starting at all ages and years and different years in primary school and secondary. I guess, is there any reason why this cannot be done at a very much an entry level as well as at 2nd, 4th and 6th? And I very much take on board that this will be done annually. Secondly, just on the 60% CNO posts, do we have an idea of how many posts that is, just in the document here? Now, I know that the information you've given here, because there's more in the statement, Minister, that you read out on STEM than what we have in the document that's been submitted to us here. So just that might be sent on to us as well. I think you gave a lot more detail around the funding for, say, the likes of SFI and a few other groups that's not in this statement here. But just in relation to CNO, 60%, how many posts is that and how many are being recruited and what is the timeline for them to be recruited? On school transport, again, excellent, 100,000, a wonderful measure that we're going to have for 2030. Just on the pilots, have we identified where those pilots are happening? Is there going to be a balance across the country? Minister is smiling at me because she knows well what I'll be asking. There'll be a great balance across the country in rural and urban.
If we give the Minister just an opportunity to reply, because I'm looking at the clock. So.
Sorry, thank you, Cahirlock. I'll leave it at that. And just, I know, Minister, that you're very conscious of a lot of these issues that cropped up for us, particularly around school transport a couple of years ago. Thank you. And sorry, thanks for minding the time, Ciara.
Tara?
Thanks very much. Thanks, Senator. Just in terms of, obviously I want to be associated with the words of appreciation to former Minister Josepha, who really was just so hardworking and diligent within our department, and it was great to work with. And we welcome Hildegard coming in now, Minister Hildegard, and met with her actually this morning as well. So we've set the ball rolling, as it were. In terms of the hot school meals, I totally agree with you. They are transformative, and there's an ambitious plan by government that they would be rolled out to all schools by 2030. And again the school books as well, and it has been very favourably received both at primary and now in September at junior cycle as well. Just in terms of the SET and the special education teachers, just, I suppose, to be clear, and I know, Senator, you have a great understanding of it because you've referenced it in terms of the model that previously existed was there since 2017. There were certain issues being flagged by people, particularly by those on the ground in terms of the schools. Primarily, that will say the school profile wasn't being the entirety of the school profile wasn't being taken into consideration. The entirety of the school profile is now being taken into consideration. I know you've referenced, 2, 4 and 6, but the school profile is actually taken into consideration. In terms of the complex, the children or young people with complex needs, you're correct, the data was not sufficient enough from the CHO areas, and so to compensate for that we're relying now on school data, and I want to be very clear around that. If a young person has such a complex need that they don't complete any of the school testing requirements, they're given maximum weighting under complex need. They don't have to complete the school assessment, as it were. And finally, and the last aspect of it then obviously is the HP index, okay? So there have been, we notified schools this very early so that they would have an opportunity to engage in the review. And just in relation to the review, to say that heretofore the review was mid-school and people got the result mid-school. We're in a position where we're saying the reviews will take place between March and May, and that has already commenced, and therefore schools will be notified well in advance of the September of 24 commencement. Equally so, we can say that 67% of all schools either retained their allocation or they've improved their allocation. We've also said that 23% of them have lost less than 5 hours, and of those that have lost less than 5 hours, 70% of those were, 90% of those were due to lesser numbers in the school, to a drop in enrolments. So that is another key factor as well. And finally, just in terms of, because I know we're running out of time, just in terms in general, in terms of the C notes, just to say there was an additional €13 million made available to the National Council for Special Education this year to increase their personnel, and that included the C notes. So we had over 1,000 applications in terms of C notes. We are increasing the number up to 120, from 73 up to 120. We're also changing the jurisdictions. Heretofore there were 10 centres, there will now be 21 centres, all managed by an individual who will have oversight of the work of the CNOs. And again, just on that one, it's a new model of practice, which will mean there will be more CNOs in the system, and there will be almost county by county, not entirely, but almost, county by county distribution of them. In relation to the school transport and the pilots, and the world and his mother is interested in those pilots. Just to say, there will be announcements shortly around the pilot. The pilots are really trials. That's really what we're talking about, and it's a two-type trial. The first one where you'll amalgamate school transport with public transport, so that would really be for post-primary students, because children under 12 couldn't travel on the public bus, as it were. And then the second one will be to look at the distance criteria. But just to say, there will be an announcement initially on those two pilots, but there may well be opportunity later, towards the end of June or whatever, for additional types of pilots, as regards other recommendations that are within the system as well.
It is fantastic to see the review, Minister.
But not everything will come in the next couple of weeks. Some of it will come perhaps at the end of June.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.